Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. We will cover issues you need to consider prior to submitting a voluntary retirement application, and we will touch on some general retirement pay information. My name is Senior Airman Scribner.
And I am Senior Airman Miller.
We will serve as your narrators today. Today's briefing is aimed at enlisted members of the regular component. If you are pending retirement action under the Disability Evaluation System, please contact the Air Force Personnel Center Disability Division for information regarding your retirement process. Throughout this briefing, we will mention the Retirement Approval Authority, which is typically the AFPC Military Retirements and Separations section. However, for Chief Master Sergeants and Chief Selects who require a waiver to retire, the Approval Authority is the Air Force Chiefs Group. If you have any questions during this presentation, please make note of them, and we will take time at the end of the session to answer them.
We will also discuss factors that affect the retirement date you plan to request, including permissive TDY and terminal leave, and requesting retirement in lieu of an assignment or extended deployment, commonly known as 7-day or 3-day option. Then we'll just finish with information concerning retirement pay. Now that you have a brief description on what we will be covering, let's get started.
This slide displays some of the topics we will cover today. We'll begin by briefly discussing some basic information on eligibility criteria, like how to determine when you reach retirement eligibility, active duty service commitments, and how medical and administrative hold affects your retirement. These items and many more will play a vital role in determining your eligibility for retirement. We will also discuss some factors that can prevent or delay retirement processing.
The basic rules for retirement are fairly simple. You must complete at least 20 years of active military service before your desired retirement date. Additionally, you are required to complete all active duty service commitments prior to retiring. While active duty service commitments are waiverable, there are only certain conditions that warrant approval. We'll discuss more on the waiver process in a few moments. And finally, to be eligible for retirement, you must not have any adverse actions pending, like an Article 15, court-martial, or administrative discharge.
As we mentioned, you must complete 20 years of active service by your desired retirement date. You can determine your active service time by reviewing your service dates in the virtual MPF under Self-Service Actions. Just click on the Service Dates section. Your total active federal military service date accounts for all of your active duty time, including all creditable active duty, guard, and reserve time. The Air Force uses this date to determine when you are eligible to retire. Voluntary retirements are always effective on the first day of the month. Therefore, the earliest retirement date you may request is the first day of the month following completion of 20 years of active service. However, if you have any limiting factors, such as an unfulfilled active duty service commitment or ADSC, that commitment may prevent the Retirement Approval Authority from authorizing retirement on the date you request.
One hurdle you may experience is not having the required retainability for your desired retirement date. The Retirement Approval Authority may only approve you for a retirement prior to or the day following your date of separation or DOS. For example, if your DOS is 31 July, you may request a retirement date no later than 1 August. However, if you don't have sufficient retainability to serve until your desired retirement date, you may still initiate the retirement process by asking for a retirement eligibility check. During the retirement eligibility review, your record is verified to ensure you meet all other requirements, and you will be provided with the paperwork to accomplish an extension of enlistment. You will need to take the paperwork provided to your re-enlistment office at the local military personnel flight to complete your extension. After your military personnel flight determines you are eligible to extend and the military personnel data system is updated, you must then resubmit for another eligibility check based on your updated DOS.
In addition to considering the minimum time required for retirement, you must also be aware of the maximum time you can serve. Enlisted members are limited to the number of years they can serve according to Air Force policy called High Year of Tenure. Currently, the High Year of Tenure, or HYT, for the top 5 grades is shown here. Senior airmen are limited to 10 years of active service. In rare instances, you can request a waiver to this limitation when you are near your HYT. Requests are only approved when you are experiencing an extreme personal hardship or when it is shown to be in the best interest of the Air Force. Approval is based on many factors like manning and the documentation submitted, and extensions are normally limited to 12 months additional service. Although there are minimum and maximum limits established for service, you must apply for retirement. If you don't apply, you will be separated upon your DOS and receive no benefits.
If you are otherwise eligible, you may remain on active duty through the last day of the month of your HYT month. If you decide to retire in conjunction with your HYT date, you will request a retirement date to be effective the first day of the month following your HYT. For example, if your HYT date is 15 July, you may request a retirement date of 1 August. This will allow you to complete the maximum service authorized for your grade.
You've seen how critical your HYT and total active federal military service dates are when determining retirement. One more important date to consider is your Title 10 United States Code 1405 date, or simply your 1405 date. Your 1405 date is the multiplier used when computing your retirement pay. Therefore, we highly recommend you review your 1405 date as well as your other service dates. You can verify this date by looking in the service dates section of the virtual MPF. It will reside in the same area as your total active federal military service date. If for some reason your 1405 date is not updated in the system, this won't prevent you from applying for retirement. However, before the Retirement Approval Authority can process your application, they must ensure that this date is computed and updated in your record. This could slow down your approval notification, so don't get worried if it takes a little time for your retirement application to be processed. It could take a few weeks for the Service Dates Office to validate your record. If corrections or updates are required, we coordinate with the Service Dates Office to complete this action, so there is no need for you to contact their office and duplicate efforts.
Active duty service commitments, often referred to as ADSCs, are probably the most common limitations you must consider prior to requesting a retirement date. ADSCs ensure the Air Force and our taxpayers receive an appropriate return for their investment in training and education. ADSCs also communicate to Air Force members the periods of obligated service they must complete before becoming eligible to separate or retire from active duty. If your retirement date is on or before completion of your ADSC, then a waiver is required. The most common requests are for PCS ADSCs, Senior and CO Promotion ADSC, and the commitment incurred for Post-911 GI Bill.
An ADSC waiver will only be approved for one of two reasons: when it is in the best interest of the Air Force or when you're experiencing an extreme hardship uncommon to other military members. If you need a waiver of an ADSC, you must provide clear evidence to support your request. If you request a waiver that would be in the best interest of the Air Force, the evidence must clearly show a significant impact on the unit mission and the Air Force. If you are undergoing a hardship, The justification must show that you are experiencing something uncommon to other military members that either surfaced or worsened after you accepted the service commitment. If your justification doesn't clearly meet the criteria, your retirement application will be disapproved. We often use the term exception to policy, or ETP, interchangeably with the term waiver. To request a waiver, or an ETP, you need to prepare a memorandum outlining your rationale for the request, which includes a recommendation from your commander. You can submit this and any supporting documentation by attaching it to your retirement request in the virtual MPF. The documentation you provide is the primary source of information the approval authority will consider. Therefore, please be sure your request is well justified. Additionally, supporting statements from counselors or medical personnel are vital to a successful outcome. Fully justified requests will enable the retirement approval authority to properly determine the appropriate disposition of your case. While the majority of the cases received are processed through our office, there are some circumstances requiring us to send the case to the Secretary of the Air Force for review and disposition. We can identify these cases as they come in, and this requires no additional action by you unless requested by our office.
AFI 36-3203, Service Retirements, also outlines conditions that are considered common to many retiring members and are not accepted as waiver justification. As you can see, the situations listed here are not in the best interest of the Air Force or uncommon to most military members. Therefore, we cannot approve waivers for these reasons. Additionally, simple statements like saving the Air Force money don't clearly explain why a waiver should be approved, since early retirement in most cases saves money. There needs to be more evidence for us to consider a waiver request.
The Post-911 GI Bill transferability benefit has by far been the most requested ADSC waiver in recent years. Most of the requests we receive come from customers who are unfamiliar with the terms associated with the Post-911 GI Bill or the 4-year ADSC incurred with the election of this entitlement. Many members who revoke the Post-911 GI Bill transferability option do so with the assumption it automatically cancels out their ADSC. However, that is not true. AFI 36-2649, Voluntary Education Program, and the application in MilConnect state that revocation of transferred benefits does not automatically cancel the member's active duty service commitment. Therefore, if you wish to retire prior to your ADSC completion date, you must provide justification to support the waiver request, but there is no guarantee it will be approved. Additionally, unless you are approved for a waiver of the ADSC due to hardship conditions, you must pay back any used portion of the benefit and you lose the transferability option. Please keep in mind, if your justification doesn't clearly meet the criteria, your retirement application will be disapproved.
You must consider your service commitment when requesting a retirement date. In the top example, if you currently have a DOS of 31 July and an ADSC that expires 15 June, you should request a retirement date of 1 July or later to allow you to fulfill your ADSC. If you request a retirement date of 1 June or earlier, you will require a waiver of the ADSC. There is one exception to the ADSC rule. If your current high year of tenure does not allow you to request a retirement date after your ADSC expires, then no waiver is required if you request to retire the month following your HYT. For instance, if you have a HYT of 15 March and a request a retirement date of 1 April, the Retirement Approval Authority will automatically waive the unserved portion of your ADSC to allow you to retire.
The assignment availability codes outlined in the Military Personnel Data System normally help us identify other factors that can impact your retirement. The most common codes which prevent or delay retirement are Code 15, pending court-martial or civil court proceedings, Code 17, under Security Force/OSI investigation, Code 37, pending a medical evaluation board or a physical evaluation board, and Code 50, maximum TOR. Remember, these are not all of the assignment availability codes that could affect your retirement. If your personnel record reflects one of these codes, or some other code you think may impact your eligibility, you should contact your local military personnel flight or the local medical treatment facility for information and assistance.
Now that you have seen some of the basic requirements for your retirement, let's look at when you can request a retirement date. As we said before, all voluntary retirements must be effective on the first day of the month. Additionally, applications can only be submitted within 12 months of the desired effective date. For example, if you want to retire 1 October of 2020, you may submit your application no earlier than 1 October of 2019.
Requests for retirement should also be submitted at least 120 days in advance of the desired date. For example, if you apply for 1 August, the earliest retirement date you may request is 1 December of that year. If you apply after that, for example, on 15 August, the earliest retirement date you may request is 1 January. This advance notice allows the Retirement Approval Authority sufficient time to process your request and also allows your assignment team or time to identify a replacement if necessary. You may request a waiver to this notification requirement. Just like waivers to ADSCs, you will need to prepare a justification outlining your rationale for the request that shows a short notice retirement is in the best interest of the Air Force or that you are experiencing an extreme personal hardship uncommon to other members. Your justification must also include a recommendation from your commander. You can submit this and any supporting documentation by attaching it to your retirement request in the virtual MVF.
Besides requesting ADSC waivers, members often request retirement in lieu of 365-day extended TDY or an assignment. To do this, you must meet the parameters of the program commonly referred to as the 3-day option or 7-day option. If you are notified of a 365-day extended TDY and you want to retire in lieu of the deployment, you only have 3 duty days to submit an application. If you are notified of a PCS assignment, you have 7 calendar days to initiate the retirement action. AFI 36-2110, Total Force Assignments, Chapters 5 and 7, outline the retirement date you must request under the 3-day or 7-day option programs. In most cases, you must retire no later than the first day of the 7th month following notification. Members often request exceptions to the 3-day or 7-day option program, such as waivers of ADSCs or being allowed to request retirement after the option period is over. As with any other waiver request, you must provide justification to show an extreme personal hardship is occurring or that it would be in the best interest of the Air Force to approve the request. While some exceptions are approved, many are not. Therefore, we encourage you to carefully consider your options during the election period.
In order to apply for retirement under the 3-day or 7-day option program, you must submit a retirement eligibility check within the option period. That is, within 3 duty days of TDY notification or 7 calendar days of assignment notification. If you are applying in lieu of an assignment, you must still acknowledge the assignment in the virtual MPF before applying for retirement. For a 365-day extended TDY, you must complete and attach the TDY notification memorandum directly to your case by uploading it via your My account on the virtual MPF. Be sure to have the appropriate authorities sign the memorandum before attaching it to your case. Also remember, if you are requesting a retirement date prior to completion of an ADSC, Your request may be disapproved if you don't justify a waiver of the ADSC. As explained earlier, the strength of your justification is based on the supporting documents you provide.
As you see here, the basic requirement for the 7-day option or 3-day option program is to retire no later than the first day of the 7th month following the notification. In this example, the appropriate authority notifies Master Sergeant Jane Smith on 15 August, so the latest retirement date she may request is 1 March of the following year. She may request a date prior to the first day of the 7th month, provided she is otherwise eligible. However, there are some exceptions to this rule that we'll discuss in a moment.
If you apply for retirement and there is an assignment or deployment loaded in the system, even if you have not been notified, you are still subject to the 3-day or 7-day option programs. This means you must be eligible to retire no later than the first day of the 7th month from notification. As we mentioned, before you can request retirement, you must acknowledge your assignment through the virtual MPF or attach the completed TDY notification memorandum to your online retirement application. The Retirement Approval Authority can then complete your eligibility check to allow you to submit your retirement application.
Although you might not be aware, there are other exceptions to the 3-day or 7-day option programs. If you are notified of the event inside of your 19th year and are not eligible to retire on the first day of the 7th month, you may apply to retire no later than the first day of the month after you become retirement eligible. Let's look at some examples that will better explain this.
In the first example, the member has a total active federal military service date of 15 September 2000, and he is notified on 23 September 2019. At the time of notification, the member has 19 years of service and may request a retirement for 1 October 2020, which is the first month he is retirement eligible. In example 2, a member whose total active federal military service date is 15 August 2000 is notified of assignment on 31 October 2019. Since the member must apply for retirement the first month eligible, he or she must request a retirement date of 1 September 2020.
With the creation of virtual MPF, nearly all members retiring from overseas can now complete processing prior to departing the overseas area. However, there may be times when you are required to travel to an Air Force base in the United States to complete your final actions. Requests for this travel are limited to those members stationed at locations where processing facilities do not exist and it is not feasible to send the members on temporary duty to a nearby installation to complete processing. In very rare cases, if you are stationed at locations where facilities do exist, you may be authorized to travel to a U.S. base when you can provide documentation to show you are experiencing a unique personal hardship or that travel to a separation processing base would be in the best interest of the Air Force. You must submit a request to travel to a separation processing base at least 60 days prior to departure. Examples of the request are outlined in the Personnel Services Delivery Guide on the Separation Processing Base program at the link shown on the slide. You can also contact the Total Force Service Center for assistance.
You're probably wondering when your last duty day will be once you are approved for retirement. This depends on whether or not your commander authorizes you to take permissive TDY and/or terminal leave in conjunction with your retirement. Permissive TDY is non-chargeable leave. Your commander may authorize up to 20 days if you are retiring from a stateside base, or up to 30 days if you are retiring from an overseas location. The purpose of permissive TDY is to help in your transition from active duty to civilian status, and should be used for things like job and house hunting. Terminal leave is any leave that you have earned that is taken in conjunction with your retirement date, but after you final out process from your unit. Both terminal leave and permissive TDY are subject to approval by your commander. Remember, your commander may authorize all, some, or none of your requested leave and permissive TDY.
When calculating your departure date, one thing to consider is that you will still be earning leave while you're on leave. You will accrue 2.5 days of your leave per month up until your retirement date. However, the same rules of leave accrual apply, such as the maximum amount carried over from one fiscal year to another. Currently, this maximum is 60 days. So if you are planning on taking terminal leave through 30 September, such as 1 September to 30 November, and you have more than the maximum allowable amount of leave to carry over, your leave balance will automatically be reduced to the maximum number of carryover days. Be sure to adjust your departure date accordingly to account for this, or take normal leave before you outprocess to use any days over the maximum allowable amount to avoid losing them. You may not request to extend an approved retirement solely to take leave that you did not account for. On the next slide, you will see an example of how to calculate your retirement leave.
In our example, Master Sergeant John Doe is requesting a retirement date of 1 December. This is how we would figure out his leave dates. In our example here, Master Sergeant Doe has a current leave balance of 47 days at the end of July. He will continue to earn leave all the way through November. By the end of November, he will have accrued a total of 57 days of leave that he may take as terminal. If the commander also approves the maximum amount of permissive TDY, in this case 20 days, that brings the total to 77 days. Then, you simply start with the last day of chargeable leave, 30 November, and count backwards 77 days. For Master Sergeant Doe, his last duty day will be 14 September, and he'll begin his permissive TDY and terminal leave on the 15th.
Now, let's go over some general pay rules. Many transactions occur when a member retires, such as calculation of terminal leave and permissive TDY, selling leave back, repayment of any pending debts to the government, and so on. Because of this, a member's final active duty paycheck is usually delayed by a few weeks, so members should be prepared financially in case this happens. A member's final active duty pay will include payment for all unused leave, but all earned final active duty pay will go towards any indebtedness to the government prior to being paid to the member.
Now, unlike active duty pay, you will only receive retirement pay once a month. Normally, you can expect your first retirement check the first day of the month after your retirement effective date. For example, if you retire on 1 August, you should receive your first retirement paycheck on 1 September. Many things we mentioned about your final active duty check may also affect the calculations of your retired pay, like debts to the government, acceptance of the career status bonus, and so forth. These special circumstances may require the Defense Finance and Accounting Service to perform manual calculations of your retired pay to ensure accuracy. This doesn't happen very often, but this manual process could delay your retired pay. Therefore, we highly recommend you have a financial reserve to tide you over for 60 to 90 days in case there are any delays with DFAS starting your retired pay.
Today, we went over some very important information that you will need to know and consider prior to requesting a retirement date. We discussed key things to consider for eligibility factors, ADSCs, and the 7-day and 3-day option programs. We hope you found this information helpful, and we will be holding future broadcasts to cover final outprocessing actions. Additionally, we highly encourage you to attend a Transition Assistance Program TAP seminar sponsored by your Airmen and Family Readiness Center even before you apply to retire.
this time, we will answer any questions you might still have. We highly encourage everyone to stay through the question and answer period. However, if you do have any further questions and can't stay with the broadcast, please contact us through our organizational email shown on the screen or give us a call at DSN 665-0102.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go to our live question and answer session now. We already see a few questions typed in already. Also, our Facebook Live audience, please type your questions in the chat area on Facebook Live, and we're going to answer your questions live today. Thank you so much.
Okay, good morning. This is Ann Lacey from Retirement Policy. We're going to take our first question from the DCS from Master Sergeant Leon Rivera. I'm projecting to retire on 1 September 2020, but have a max stabilized tour code for 1 December 2020. Can I retire before 1 December 2020? Yes, you can, provided that you're otherwise eligible. You can retire prior to completing your maximum tour. You have to complete the PCS ADSC that's associated with the move that took you there and any other ADSCs that you might have. If you want to retire after your maximum tour expires, then you would have to request an extension of that tour before applying for retirement. Okay, question from the Facebook Live from Chris Chapman. Can I start terminal leave within the 120-day requirement? You can't start terminal leave until you've actually been approved for retirement and your commander approves that. But if you apply for retirement within the 120-day notification requirement and your request for a short notice retirement is approved, then you would have to work with your commander to determine if he's going to approve terminal leave and permissive TDY for you. Okay, question from DCS from Kevin Lalibert. Sorry if I mispronounced that. How long before the approved retirement date can an overseas member return to a U.S. base to out-process? Well, typically, if you're at a location where you cannot complete your final out processing, then you have to submit a request to travel to a U.S. base for out processing. You are entitled to 8 duty days at that particular location, and that's normally done right before you start your permissive TDY and terminal leave. But you would work with your commander to determine your departure date, what the commander is going to approve for permissive TDY and terminal leave, and then back up your departure date based on the number of days that you're authorized at the out processing location. Okay, a question from Facebook Live from General Vicente. I'm curious about what hardship uncommon to someone else means. A supervisor of mine requested retirement because of cancer but got denied. Well, everybody's circumstances are different. So, I can't really speak to the case that you're referencing without looking at the documentation that was provided. You know, if the member just mentioned it in a memo and didn't provide medical documentation to support it, or clearly stated why retirement's the only solution, then that's probably why it got denied. But it's really hard for us to speculate on cases like this without looking at the justification. But a hardship uncommon to someone else is just that. You have to provide evidence that shows whatever the circumstances are, why it's more severe than what your peers would be experiencing in a similar situation, and why retirement is the only solution for that. Okay, question from DCS from Alexander Johnson. As retirement pay starts the month after retirement, is the first retirement paycheck for 2 months? No, your first retirement paycheck is going to be for 1 month worth of retired pay. In our example that we showed in the presentation, if you retire 1 August, then you're going to get that first check for 1 September, and that would be retired pay for the month of August. Okay, a question from Facebook Live from Tim Berlinski. 60 days is the total terminal that can be taken. I have 82 days by my retirement date. No, there is no maximum number of terminal leave days that you can take. It's dependent upon what your commander will approve and whether or not you're crossing over into another fiscal year and if your leave balance is going to be reduced. So you need to talk to your commander first about how much time they will approve. And then if they're not going to approve the entire amount that you have saved, you can either sell it back or take it as normal leave before you start. If they'll approve that, then you can take it as normal leave and use it up before you start permissive TDY and terminal leave. Okay, question. Excuse me, a question from DCS from Master Sergeant Thompson. I already know the answer to this, but just to be sure, my DOS is October of 21. I'd like to retire in October 20. Will this require an ADSC request, correct? Your date of separation is not an active duty service commitment. Active duty service commitments are typically associated with something like a promotion or PCS, or if you took any training. But if your contract expires prior to you wanting to retire, that's not a problem. We have to look at all of the other factors, whether you have actually ADSCs or not. But if you have no other ADSCs and you're eligible to retire in October of 2020, then the additional time on your contract will just drop off after you retire. Okay, a question from Facebook Live from Brad and Amba Vile. Is permissive leave before terminal or after? Well, typically you're going to take your permissive TDY before you take terminal leave. Terminal leave is just that. It's the final leave that you take before the retirement effective date. You can take permissive TDY in conjunction with terminal leave, or you can take the permissive TDY, come back, final out process, and start your terminal leave if you choose to. Okay, a question from the DCS from Master Sergeant Clark. I currently have an ADSC of February of 20. I would like to retire on 1 September 20. Can I apply for retirement in September of 2019, or do I have to wait until my ADSC is complete? You can apply for retirement up to 12 months in advance. So you would, based on your scenario that you described, you can submit a retirement application on 1 September of 2019 for a 1 September 2020 retirement date. Okay, question from Facebook Live from Thomas and Kelly Wyatt. If I complete a 12-month short tour and have 4 months left till retiring, do I return to the duty location I came from to begin terminal and permissive TDY? If you're going to be retiring from overseas, your Darrows has to be the month prior to your requested retirement date. So if you're not eligible to retire until 4 months after your short tour is completed, you'll either need to return to the CONUS on a PCS assignment, but then you're going to incur a 12-month ADSC, or you're going to have to submit a Darrows extension request to adjust your Darrows to the month prior to the date you want to retire. As far as your departure date from the overseas location, that can be prior to your Darrows month. But again, you have to work with your commander on what he or she will approve coming out of the overseas area. So make sure when you're thinking about retirement and you're overseas to discuss your plans with your commander before doing any applications. Okay, question from the DCS from Julia Cohen. If my 20-year mark is 17 January 2021, when is the earliest I can request retirement in the virtual MPF? Well, if you're otherwise eligible, if you hit 20 years, 17 January 2021, the earliest retirement date that you could request would be 1 February of 2021. And as we mentioned, you can apply 12 months in advance. So if you're retiring 1 February of 2021, then you can submit your application 1 February of 2020. Okay, question from Facebook Live from Lynn Westfield. Sorry, I missed this part, but which leave is taken first, permissive or terminal? Do you submit both to the commander through LeaveWeb, and how soon can you apply for both? Well, you would submit typically you're going to take your permissive TDY first and then your terminal leave. And you would submit those to your commander, but you should talk to your commander before doing the applications so that you have an idea of what he or she is going to approve. And you can apply for those as soon as you're approved for retirement. But again, you'd want to discuss that with your commander, because some commanders don't want to consider those requests until you get closer to your departure date, because they're going to look at what the mission needs are and determine if they can support that terminal leave or permissive TDY request. Okay, question from the DCS from Tech Sergeant Klusman. If I get notified of an assignment and decline retainability to accept it, my current DOS will be over 20 years, but 2 weeks shy of my 1 February 2021 requirement date. Will I be allowed to extend the 2 weeks to retire even if I decline the assignment, but I have over 20 years at that point? Well, I'm not sure I'm understanding your question entirely, but if you're hitting 20 years of service in January of 2021 and your data separation doesn't get you to 1 February of 2021 and you decline retainability, then that will make you ineligible to extend or re-enlist, and you would not have sufficient time to retire. Okay, a question from Facebook Live from Angie Everson. I received an assignment notification after I received an approved eligibility date of 1 July. I applied for retirement for 1 July after the assignment notification for the commander. Does that mean I now have to retire based on the 7-month rule? Assignment or 7-day option rules apply based on the assignment selection date. So we would have to look at your record and see what your actual assignment selection date was, not necessarily when you were notified of the assignment. So the best thing to do is either submit an eligibility request if you're wanting to 7-day op, or give us a call or email us at our organizational email. And then we can take a look at your record, see what your assignment selection date was, and determine whether or not the 7-day op rules actually apply to you or not. Okay, a question from DCS from Master Sergeant Ulmer. If I buy a home in the local area 1 year before retirement, will TMO move us into the new home from rental if it is within the 12-month window of retirement? Unfortunately, I don't have the answer to that. I would recommend that you check with your local TMO to determine if you're talking about moving from base housing to a local home. There are limitations to that, but talk to your TMO. If they're not able to help you, then please email us at our organizational email, and we'll talk to the folks over at the Personal Property Agency and get an answer for you. Okay, question from Facebook Live from Avita Bodhi. Good morning. My HYT is 16 July 2021. My current enlistment is up to July 2021. I want to max out to my HYT. Would my retirement date be 1 August? Would I need to extend to that date? You would be able, if you're provided you're otherwise eligible to extend your enlistment, you could request based on your HYT, you could request a 1 August 2021 date, but you would need to extend your enlistment for 1 month so that your data separation gets you to the desired retirement date. Question from the DCS from Staff Sergeant Frank Long. When is the earliest I can apply for retirement eligibility if I am projected to retire on 1 September 2020? Again, you can submit your eligibility request up to 12 months prior to your desired retirement date. Therefore, in your scenario, the earliest you'd be able to submit an eligibility request would be 1 September of 2019. Question from Facebook Live from Justin Pruitt. Does declining a no-cost PCS, i.e. within the local area and does not incur an ADSC, have any impact on the 7-day option? No, if you're declining a no-cost move and there's no ADSC associated with it, then it's not technically in the same category as a 7-day, regular PCS declination. But I would talk to your assignment team about how they're coding that assignment, just to make sure that they've got it coded as a no-cost move. Or if you have questions, then please email us at our organizational email and we can talk to the assignment policy folks. Question from Master Sergeant Barter on the DCS. It is my understanding that I can't transfer my post-911 GI Bill benefits to my dependent if I am retiring due to HYT. As long as you've completed the active duty service commitment associated with the post-911 GI Bill, then you should be able to transfer that. But if you would email us at our organizational email, then we'll pass your question on to the education team so that they can answer more thoroughly. Question from the Facebook Live from Robert Roll. Do you still accrue leave while on CSP Skills Bridge? Yes, you're still on active duty while you're in that program, and you would be accruing leave during that period of time that you'd have to account for. And your terminal leave would be incorporated in that time that you're in the Skills Bridge program. Okay, question from the DCS. I'm from Master Sergeant Orlador. I'm stationed overseas with a 19 July 20 Darrows. Can I request a 1 July 20 as my retirement date, or do I need to request for 1 August of 20? To avoid having to request a Darrows curtailment, you should apply for a 1 August 2020 date to retire. If you request to retire prior to completing your Darrows, then you would require a waiver, and you have to justify that, and also request a Darrows curtailment that's going to have to get endorsed by your commander and unit, or excuse me, your unit and wing commander. And the assignment team would have to consider whether or not they're going to curtail your Darrows. And that approval would be based on the justification that you provide. So the best thing to do is, in order to avoid any waivers or curtailment requests, then request that 1 August 2020 date. Okay, we've got time for 2 more questions. So we'll take one from Facebook Live from Jeannie Meany. Can you start your terminal prior to your ADSC date? Well, everything is going to be dependent upon, first off, whether or not your ADSC expires prior to your requested retirement date. If your ADSC expires after your requested retirement date, of course, you're going to have to get a waiver in order to be approved to retire. But if you're approved for retirement, you can request terminal. And if that happens to start prior to your ADSC expiring, that's fine. Okay, and our last question from the DCS from Master Sergeant Edmonds. Can I retire in lieu of assignment if my ADSC will be completed within 12 months? My ADSC is complete 31 July of 20. Can I apply for a retirement date of 1 August 20? Well, that's going to depend on when you're notified of an assignment. The ADSC has the typical rules for 7-day option are that you have to be able to retire no later than the first day of the 7th month, unless you're notified of your assignment at 19 years of service, and then you'd be able to request a retirement date farther out, the first day of the month after you hit 20. So it all depends on how many years of service you have, when you're notified of the assignment, and what your eligibility is. So the best thing I would recommend is either email us at our organizational email or submit an eligibility if you've actually received an assignment. And then we can take a look and determine what you're eligible for. If we missed your questions, We will post everything on MyPERS within a few days. We'll have the Q&As out there. Or if you can't wait for that, then please email us at our organizational email, and we'll get an answer back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for attending today.